Hey guys, and welcome to another tutorial. In this video we're going to be discussing the Restoration Shaman spell Earthshield, exploring a bit of the PvE and probably predominantly the PvP aspects of this spell, and how we can get the absolute maximum out of it, as it definitely does have some flaws and weaknesses. So to start with, we'll look at the absolute raw mechanics of the spell. It's a 41 point talent in your restoration tree, and pretty much every single resto spec you'll ever see played will use it because it's pretty fantastic. In front of you now we've got three examples of a PvE spec with it, and then three examples with a PvP, and I'm just going to let those run in the background. The spell itself has three ranks, and this is significant in TBC as downranking is still a thing. For anyone not very familiar with what downranking is for a variety of reasons. Using lower ranks of spells is often advantageous, so you'll quite often see people with multiple ranks of the same spell on their action bar. Another example for a Shaman would be Earthshock. Because Earthshock has different aspects to it, it has both the damage and the interrupt. You generally want to have at least one example of it as rank 1 being bound, so that if you don't necessarily want to use the extra mana for the damage but you do want to interrupt a spellcast, you'll just use the rank 1. It will cost you a lot less mana, it won't do so much damage, but it still adds that interrupt aspect to it. Similar to that, Earthshield has two aspects to it. It has the immediate charges and the heal that it gives. At rank 1 it costs 150 mana to cast, 300 mana to cast, and each stack heals for 150. And then rank 3, which is the second rank that you'll be wanting to use, costs 450 mana and heals for 270. The second aspect, and the aspect that works regardless of the rank, is that it gives you a 30% chance to resist pushback on your casts. So what this is, again, just assuming no prior knowledge, when you're casting, if somebody's hitting you, any form of damage this is, if you don't have anti-pushback, when halfway through your cast you take the damage, you'll reset it back to 0 on your cast, and when you play the game you'll get to experience this. It's obviously incredibly frustrating and negative to your casting ability, so the 30% coupled with the 70% that we get from talents allows us to actually reach 100% resistance to pushback, which is very, very important, especially when you're being focused. So what we want to do then with two ranks is, if we want to have in a PvE situation, you'll basically always want to be using rank 3, as from a purely mathematical standpoint, it costs, yes, an additional 50% mana, but it heals an additional 80% from healing, so it works out as being effective. However, in PvP, often because different people get focused, and you always want to have your Earth Shield on the person being focused, you'll quite often swap your Earth Shields around, and you won't get the full 6 charges out of it. It might swap onto yourself if you're getting focused. If they then leave you and go to somebody else, you swap your focus back, or sorry, swap your Earth Shield onto that second person. And because of this, quite often you'll downrank it to rank 1, especially if you're doing it on yourself, because one of the primary reasons you'll do it on yourself is if you're being focused, as we said, you need to have it on yourself to give you that 30% resistance to pushback to get you to the 100%, and at this point the healing isn't so much the significant aspect, it's the 30%, so you do the rank 1. And the final reason for downranking is due to being dispelled and purged. So there are certain classes in the game that can remove magic buffs from you. Shaman is one of them with purge, dispel magic from priests, and unlike in later expansions, if you played Shaman in later expansion you might be familiar with it, despite the fact that Earthshield has 6 charges, when it comes to dispelling it doesn't, it just has 1. So a single dispel will take all 6 of those charges and the Earthshield is completely removed. Now, we do have 30% chance to dispel resist if you spec for it. Not everybody does, some people don't take it. I personally always prefer to take it myself. I think it's really important. 30% is not a lot, but it does matter. But beyond that, if you're getting spammed purged and you're trying to heal and trying to keep it up, you really don't want to be using max rank. You want to go down to that rank 1, but try and keep it up on yourself. The other thing you can do is you can try and protect it a little bit. The easiest way of doing that is using underwater breathing. This is a second magic debuff. So the way dispels work, it's complete RNG, it's just luck which spell they cast on. or sorry, which spell is hit by their dispel. So if they dispel magic you, um, dispel will take 2 magic debuffs, assuming we have no other debuffs, so buffs on ourselves. Um, we just have earthshield and water breathing. Each of those then has the 30% chance to resist after they've been targeted. However, if there's only going to be one dispel, so Devour Magic for example, from a Fell Hunter pet, it's 50-50 whether it hits the Earth Shield or the Water Shield or the Water Breathing, and then the resist is applied. So I can't do the maths off the top of my head, but it's worth it. So one of the most common questions I get asked when I'm playing is, why do I swap my gear all the time in the arena? In the background you'll see me swap the gear prior, and this is because you can snapshot your Earth Shield. What this means is Earth Shield receives benefit from your plus healing gear. However, it's calculated at the time at which you cast the Earth Shield. That means if you cast your Earth Shield and you have at that point in time 2000 plus healing, then the Earth Shield receives 2000 plus healing. However, if 30 seconds later or a second later you swap your gear and you go down to 1500 plus healing, the Earth Shield doesn't change to accommodate for the swap in your gear. It will stay at that 2000. So what I do is I use item rack, where I have a specific set. It's called buff. I just call it buff, you can call it whatever you want. And the purpose of this set is it's purely to give me as much plus healing as possible. It seems really janky, it's got some weird sort of mix of PvP, PvE gear, but the point is just to give myself as much plus healing as possible. You could even use green plus healing gear if that's what is best for you. You then have this gear set when you enter. You enter in, you put down a Wrath of Air totem. This gives you 101 spell power, which equates to 101 plus healing. You then pop any plus healing trinkets you have, or plus damage trinkets, anything that gives you additional plus healing, pop it all, place a very powerful Earth Shield on someone, then item rack and swap back to your normal PvP set. And this is the way you snapshot, and that's the reason I swap my gear all the time. Now that we've got the biggest Earth Shield we can possibly have, we have to choose who to put it on. Generally speaking, in PvP, you're going to put it on a tank that you might be healing. If you're healing the raid and not a tank, then just pick a tank randomly and just keep Earth Shield on them throughout the course of the fight. There are some fights where you'll use Warlock tanks, so Kael'thas, for example, uses Warlock tank in there, and obviously giving them the 30% anti-pushback is very nice, and they're lovely for it, so Earth Shield's quite good for that. In a PvP situation, you generally want to start with this very powerful Earth Shield on whoever you think is going to be focused. And this just comes with time and practice with the setup. You sort of get to a feeling of who's going to be focused and who likes to, who your opponents like to focus on an attack. The main difference or major difference here is when you're going against a rogue team. If you see they have a rogue, then you automatically want to swap the Earth Shield from whoever you have it on, basically, to yourself. This isn't 100% effective, but this is generally pretty effective, and especially in 2v2 it's very important that you do this. The reason for this being that if you're 2v2, then the rogue will be able to sap your partner, but they won't be able to sap you because you're playing gods here and you're in Ghost Wolf, so you're immune to sap. So the chances are they probably will open on you. And if they open on you and you haven't got Earth Shield on yourself, then yeah, you're up shit creek. However, if they don't open on you and they open on your partner, then you're completely free just to pop your Earth Shield from yourself onto them. However, if you're being stun locked and you haven't got your Earth Shield on yourself already, then you're being stunned, so you can't swap it. And as a result of this, you're going to end up with someone being targeted and pressured that hasn't got Earth Shield on, and that's what you want to avoid. So Earth Shield straight onto yourself if you're versus a rogue. There are exceptions to that, but at this point, I would say just focus on getting onto yourself. This is like the absolute fundamentals and basics of Earth Shield. If you have any questions, then feel free to ask. I'm quite amenable in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this. I will put some footage in the background for you guys to watch with some tunes. I hope you enjoy that. And yeah, don't forget to do all the shit that YouTubers tell you to do. Like, subscribe, post a comment, send me some feed pics. Don't do that. That would be concerning. Yeah. Don't worry, I'll set up an OnlyFans soon. TM. Cheers, guys.